It is now February 2nd, 2025, which means it is officially the 15th birthday of Star Trek Online. Crazy is that? Now, obviously, the anniversary event hasn't quite started yet on Star Trek Online. It won't be starting until February 11th on PC and I think like a month later on console. But I figured we could kick things off by looking back at past anniversary events over the past couple years, particularly at the anniversary bundles, which, again, not quite out yet. We don't even officially know what ships are going to be in the 15th anniversary bundle, aside from the Ark Royal. But a little while ago, I decided to kind of take a look back at the 10th anniversary ships and wanted to do something similar for some of the other anniversary ships. And today we're going to be looking at those in the 12th, 13th, and 14th anniversary ship bundles. These were a bit different than those in the first two anniversary bundles because these ships were released as C-Store ships. So you could buy them in total in the bundle, or you can buy them individually as normal C-Store ships. And since today is Stowe's birthday, I figured today's a good day to do that. So let's look back at the non-legendary anniversary ships from Star Trek Online and see how they still hold up in the form of a tier list. Okay, so how I'm splitting this one up is we've got four categories: must-have ships, really good ships, not great but still fun ships, and just meh. And as I said earlier, the ships I will be ranking are the non-legendary ships from the previous anniversary bundles. So those are from the 12th, 13th, and 14th anniversary bundles. I'm only including the new ships from those bundles. I won't be including the lockbox slash promo ships that were also included as bundle exclusives because, well, they were bundle exclusives, whereas these were part of the bundle but were also available individually as normal C-Store ships. So the ships that I'll be ranking include the Lexington, Adamant, the Trailblazer, and the Cygnus from the 12th anniversary bundle, the Eagle, the Hydra, the Monitor, and the Sirius from the 13th anniversary bundle, and the Awani, Atlantis, Chekhov, and the Princeton from last year's 14th anniversary bundle. Starting off, we've got the Lexington. I've said this many times. This is my favorite ship to play right now. It is a variant of my favorite ship, the Odyssey class, meaning you can use its skin. It's a Miracle Worker. It's a Miracle Worker dreadnought with a spinal lance and a secondary intel seat. Fantastic for an energy weapon build. Its only real flaw is that it has a 4-4 weapons layout, which is why I ultimately have to put it in really good ship. It's a fantastic ship, but being a 4-4 ship kind of relegates it to being a broadsider, which is a playstyle I very much enjoy. It's my preferred playstyle, actually, but it is not the most it's not the best for like pure damage stuff like that. So I kind of have to knock it down for that. I really wish Star Trek Online would introduce more to further assist broadside builds, but as they're kind of a general purpose, and they're kind of good. You can make them work, but not something that you're going to be doing anything super competitive with. And even with broadsiders, that's the real kicker with them. Even with on a broadside build, 5-3 is still ultimately better than 4-4. So yeah, as much as I want to put my favorite ship in must-haves, overall, it's just a really good ship, in my opinion. Next up is the Terran Adamant Heavy Raider. That's going in must-have because, one, this is an incredibly powerful ship, has fantastic bridge officer seating for an energy weapon build. It's got Intel Temporal combo, so you got unconventional systems triggers out the wazoo. It has a very meta console, the Agony Redistributor, which has had a checkered past, given that it's been debuffed, buffed, reworked, and all this crazy stuff. But it's in a good spot these days. It has been for a while now, so I'm not really worried about it being tampered with anymore. So yeah, it's really powerful console. But again, it's one of those, like, it's really powerful, but it's really something that only the DPS chasers are going to give a crap about. But I would still put it in must-have just for the amount of flexibility in the bridge officer seating. Because remember, this is a raider, so it has a lot of universal seating. So you have an incredible amount of flexibility on how you want to set this thing up, which is not true for most of these other ships. Next up is the Trailblazer. This is basically the Terran version of the warship Voyager, in the 2409 form. And I'm gonna put this in. It's not great, but it's fun. Like, this was the first science warship introduced in the game, which means it was not only a science vessel with a 4-3 weapons layout, which is something previously had only been seen on spearheads, also the Goktad for some reason, that one Fakiri ship, and whatever the tier 5 version was called. Karfi, that's what it was called. But yeah, it's only ever seen on those. before that. But these new science warships have since included a 4-3 weapons layout and an innate weapon, which on this one it was just a normal agony phase or spinal lance like the Lexington comes with. So very odd ship, but at the same time, it doesn't make a very good science vessel. At least it is a pure science vessel because it being a command ship, it doesn't offer a lot in the way of improving your exotic damage or anything like that. So as a science vessel, it's not amazing, but it is a fun ship. It's got some quirky things on it, and honestly, it's well, I don't think this skin is pretty. I'm not a big huge fan of the Trailblazer, but I do really like the Pathfinder skin and the Intrepid. So you can use those on this ship. So there's the upside there. So yeah, not a great ship, but still a fun ship in my opinion. And honestly, the Cygnus is probably going to go in the same category because ultimately this is a Galaxy class. This is a variant of the Galaxy class. For a while, this was one with fairly okay seating. I don't know. I sometimes feel like I'm being too harsh on this one, but I've never liked the seating on the Cygnus because with how its tactical and universal seating is set up, you either always have too much or too little tactical seating, and it makes it difficult to set this ship up for, in my opinion, at least the way I like it. Its console and starship trait aren't anything that are worth talking about either, so again, there's no reason to get this thing beyond just you like it, and that's fine. You can it's I get it too. It's a Galaxy class, and I certainly would pick this one over the classic Andromeda class, which has utterly terrible seating. So you're definitely going to get more useful. You're definitely going to get more usage out of this one than you would the Andromeda. It's just it's not something that I would personally be like all crazy about, especially when the World Razor exists in the game at this point. Though of course the World Razor is a lockbox ship, so I get that more people are going to be attracted to this one just for the sheer availability of it. Next up is the Terran Eagle Pilot Raider, and this one I am a little torn on because part of me wants to put it in must-have because this is like the torpedo boat to end all torpedo boats in some ways because it's got an insanely powerful torpedo console, but it's also weird because that console is you're only going to get the most effectiveness out of that console on this ship itself, because what it does is lower the shared cooldown of your torpedoes, but it will further reduce the shared cooldown even more if you are using it on a ship with pilot maneuvers, and you're only going to this is kind of the only ship that's actually useful. So it's a really good console. It's just that it's also very niche to this ship. You can use it on other ships, plenty of other ships that are useful. It's basically replaced the ferrofluidic console on torpedo builds, but at the same time, it doesn't do much else besides the ferrofluidics effect, besides it's clicky. So you're not getting that much of a boost over the ferrofluidic console by having Eagle's console instead. So it's just, it doesn't make that much of a difference unless you're using it on the Eagle. Then it actually makes quite the difference. And the other reason why I don't think I want to put it into must-haves is just because torpedo builds aren't like a beginner sort of build type. They are something more that is going to attract the DPS crowd. It's going to attract people who are into more niche build types and who are willing to spend more money in the game, which while this is a normal C-store ship, a lot of the other high-end stuff for torpedo builds is quite expensive, and some of it comes off of like lockbox and promo ships, some of which are available in Mud's Market, but even then that's still very expensive. So I'm going to call this a really good ship, but honestly, if you're looking for a Raider, I feel like more people are going to be more interested in the Adamant Heavy Raider than just because the Adamant is much more adept at an energy weapon build, whereas Eagle is where you want to go for a torpedo build. Whereas, ultimately they're going to have very similar playstyles because they are both very small, very nimble Raiders. Next is the Hydra. This is another one that's going to go into really good ship. Again, this is another one that's really great for an energy weapon build, being a full intel ship. It also has a pilot seat as the secondary, which is kind of interesting, which gives you one more uncon trigger thanks to something like, what's it called? Clean Getaway. That's what it's called. I can think. Sorry, I'm recording this at 3 a.m., so I'm a little, wacky right now. So apologies in advance. But yeah, the Hydra is basically the T6 Terran version of the Prometheus, so already like a very popular ship among the fan base. And it's got really nice seating. It's not something super high end, but you can absolutely make it work, more so than a lot of other ships. It also has a very interesting console and starship trait, but they're also both targeted to very niche builds. The console is Engage the Hydra. It's got some really complex long name. I'm not going to go into it, but because I don't remember the full name off the top of my head, and the Stoba key is down currently, so I can't look it up. But the console on this thing, what it does is basically it will transport pets to you, and they will fire this big burst of energy toward an enemy target. So it's basically just turning a bunch of your pets into actual weapons themselves, sort of. It's really interesting, and it works well with both Hangar Bay pets and also Separation pets, which is why it was released on the Hydra, because multi-vector assault mode. Its Starship trait further plays off of that, because you'll get various bonus damage buffs based off of the type of pets that you have active. So, like Summon pets, Separation pets, and Hangar Bay pets, I think it is, all of those will get various different levels of bonus damage. So really, if you just like pet builds, I would probably call the Hydra a must-have because of its console and its Starship trait. But as just like for the average person in the player base, I would just call this a really good ship. Just because as a ship on its own, it's still a really good ship, and it's a ton of fun, and it's got some neat stuff on it, and I really like the ship. It's also very pretty because it is a variant of the Prometheus. The Terran Monitor. This is another one that I'm a little torn on because I'm not sure where I want to put it yet. Because on paper, I was not super impressed with this thing. Just looking at it on paper, I probably would have put it in the not great but fun category because it's a carrier. Again, I just went over. I really like pet builds. This is a full side carrier with 2 hangar bays, so you can do like a whole a full like hangar bay support kind of build on this thing. But it's also a Miracle Worker ship, which Miracle Worker has its uses, but it's not super great at like sciencey kind of stuff because it doesn't have enough stuff to like add additional anomalies or exotic damage or that. And the stuff it does have, it doesn't perform quite as well as I would. But the one advantage that Miracle Worker does have, at least full Miracle Worker ships like the Terran Hydra or the Terran Monitor here, is that you get a whole extra universal console slot, so you add one more console on this. One of the things that are very important to science builds is their universal consoles. Clicky abilities can be very powerful. But then, if talking about EPG builds like that, again, those I don't consider to be very like casual friendly to a lot of players because EPG builds are also expensive to build up properly and they can be kind of crazy. They're not as straightforward as like your basic energy weapon builds. So I think I'm gonna go with my first instinct and put this one in not great but fun, but with the caveat of you can make this thing really good with a really niche, rather expensive setup. Next up is the Terran Sirius Command Dreadnought Cruiser, which this one's also going to go in not great but fun. Like, it doesn't have any consoles or traits that are particularly interesting. Its bridge officer seating is okay. Again, it's just one of those, like, it's better than the original Yamato class, but with the legendary version being a thing, I would definitely take that over this. But again, this is going to be the much more affordable option. It's an alright ship. It's got a commander command seat and a lieutenant commander miracle worker seat, which is an okay combo for versatility, but it also has some serious drawbacks, especially because both command and miracle worker don't have any unconventional systems triggers, which that can be a serious drawback for a lot of people for putting together builds. I also find the ship to be a bit too engineering heavy. It's got a commander engineering / command seat, but it's also got a lieutenant level engineering as well. So it's kind of heavy on the engineering seating, more so than I like. And with Miracle Worker, you're really only going to use those last 2 Miracle Worker seats for narrow sensor bands and mixed armament synergy, everything. So then you're stuck with 4 low level engineering slots, and that's too much engineering. Well, unless you're doing an Ox to Bat build for your bridge officer cooldowns, then it's a good amount of engineering seating. The Awani Command Carrier. This one is absolutely going up in must-have, and it is entirely because of its console and the pets it comes with, because the console Fleet Power Network Array is insanely powerful for an energy weapon build. The amount of haste this thing gives is absolutely crazy. It's just a very powerful DPS console, and it's really nice because it is available on a C-Store ship, so you have that available on your entire account if you own this ship, which is that's a really nice quality of life thing to have. It's like it's really nice for setting up alternate characters and stuff like that. So it's having stuff like that available is it's really nice to have. And plus, this thing also comes with the Type 7 shuttlecraft, which are amazing for how powerful the amount of debuff they're able to put out. So anything with a hangar bay, you're going to want to have those at least one of those Type 7s in there. So again, that's how you get these, which again, you will have available on your entire account if you own the ship. You also get flagship staffing off of the ship. That's the Starship trait, which is, again, another one that's really good for pet builds. So again, a little bit more of a niche target for the Starship trait, but again, really nice to have. Now, the ship itself, probably not going to appeal to everyone just because it's another 3-3 carrier command Miracle Worker setup. So, again, it's got some of the same drawbacks as the Sirius, but just the amount of stuff it comes with that is just so insanely useful just for the sheer utility of it all. It's a really good ship to have just for the sake of having all that stuff unlocked on your whole account. Of course, if you want a really good ship to fly, then we're going to talk about the Atlantis Temporal Destroyer. This is a really nice ship for mostly for energy weapon builds, but because it's a temporal ship, you can mix in some decent Dusai stuff in there as well to have some fun with the with the more exotic stuff in the damage tables. It's a really nice ship, and honestly, of them, I always thought this was a really pretty ship too. I'm not big on the Challenger class skin, which is like one of the 359 ships, but really turn this thing into a really cool looking ship. It's kind of like a 2409 era version of the Akula class, which is an old TMP era ship from the Star Trek Starfleet Command games and some of the other like TMP era games as well. Part of me is still hoping that ends up in the 15th anniversary bundle. Yeah, it's also got a decent console and trait on it. Nothing like super high end like off of the Adamant or the Awani, but it's stuff that's good to have on your whole account, especially if you're like setting up other characters. But overall, this one's mainly just here because it's a good ship to play. I really like this thing, and it comes with some good stuff. There's no real downside to this one. And actually, for a little while, this one had like one of the best experimental weapons in the game, and actually the best one in the C-Store. It's been kind of overshadowed since the Hexa Cannons came out, though. The Hexa Cannons are definitely better, but we're just talking about the anniversary ships, and the Hexa Cannons were off of the Achilles, which is not an anniversary event ship. That was from the Heritage Starship bundle, which was released like late last year. Well, not that late. I think it was like third quarter, but you get what I mean. So yeah, I would still call the Atlantis a must-have, though the only downside with the Atlantis is that it's so similar to the Adamant, because both of them have just the same combo of specializations, just reversed. The Atlantis is a temporal ship with an Intel secondary seat, whereas the Adamant is an Intel ship with a secondary temporal seat. So it's kind of a choice of, do you want to lean more into temporal or do you want to lean more into Intel? The Adamant also has the added advantage of being a full raider, so it has a lot more universal seating. So it does have a bit of an edge there in flexibility. Next, we're going to go with the Chekhov, and that's going to go in really good ship. Its Starship trait isn't anything special, and its console has proven to be kind of a disappointment, but the ship itself is rather interesting. This is the second science warship to be introduced into the game after the Trailblazer here. Though this one's innate weapon is a bit different. Instead of being a lance weapon, it's like this graviton pulse thing that can actually have some pretty decent effects, because it's also got like a subtle pull effect on it, I think. And yeah, it's an interesting thing that seems much more thematic to an actual science ship. It's also got an Intel temporal combo, kind of like the Adamant here, but again, this is a full science vessel. So that the combination of Intel and temporal is actually really good for EPG builds, because you're going to get a good amount of anomalies on there, a good amount of unconventional systems triggers in there, a lot of exotic damage on there. So this is a really nice setup. Honestly, this is probably one of the best science ships available in the C-Store. Honestly, the only reason I'm not putting it in must-have is just because, like I said before, science builds I don't feel like are very casual friendly. They're much more niche. They're difficult and kind of expensive to build together. So I wouldn't call this a must-have just off of that merit alone, but it's still definitely a really good ship. And the last one on the list is the Princeton Miracle Worker Cruiser. And as much as I hate to do it, we're going to put this one in meh. Being a 4-4 Miracle Worker Cruiser, this one really didn't have anything super special going for it. It's also got a secondary command seat, so again, it's going to have some of the same issues that like the Sirius is going to have, where you're going to have difficulty getting unconventional system triggers on it. So yeah, it's really only good for one thing, and that's for like kind of mixed DPS tanking, because you're not going to want to do like a full-fledged tank on it because it's not a full command ship. but with Merrick Worker, you're not going to want to do a full-fledged DPS energy weapon build because it's a 4-4 cruiser. But you can do a reasonable blend of both, and it's actually not that dissimilar from what you could do on the Lexington. It's just you'd be missing out on the hangar bay because Lexington is a dreadnought. And its console is actually kind of interesting. Again, it's another one that only really applies to a sort of niche playstyle because it requires you to damage yourself because you're literally dealing radiation damage to yourself. But at the same time, it also increases your ability to take damage while also dealing out damage at the same time. So it's a very weird, like, hitting yourself to deal damage sort of play style, and it's not something I would recommend to, like, the most casual players, but I mean, I had fun with it. And again, it's not something you're going to be wanting to do for the DPS chase, but again, it was a different way to change things up a bit. And honestly, if it were just going off of my opinion alone, I probably would have just moved this up to not great but fun, but at the same time, I'm going more off of the general impression from the community that I remember seeing rather than just my opinion alone. Because again, otherwise I would have put Lexington into must-have if we were going off of just my opinion. So those are the anniversary ships going over the past few years from the 12th anniversary bundle to the 13th and 14th. So yeah, I feel like this lines up pretty well, and this kind of gives you an idea of just like how good the ships from those anniversary bundles usually are. Like there's usually at least one or two like really good ships and a couple must-haves. Every once in a while they'll throw something in there that's like pretty meta, pretty crazy in there. But they also kind of, put in some other stuff that's just like really good and some stuff that's kind of just meant to be kind of fun, but isn't going to be like super crazy, but it's amusing enough that you're like, oh, I'll check that out. Honestly, it's kind of a testament to how they do this kind of stuff, that there's really only one ship in the meh category. And even then, I think that's just because more people just didn't like this sort of playstyle that this ship was targeted to. Because, like I said, I had fun with it, but I feel like more people would have fun with this type of ship if, because again, this is a 4-4 cruiser. I feel like more people would have more fun with this type of ship if Deca now would do more to help out broadside builds, because that's something I've kind of talked about on and off for a while. I should probably do a video on that sometime because I do like broadside builds and they need help. Yeah, just looking at this, I'm pretty satisfied with how this came out. I'm sure you all have different opinions on where some of these would go. So if you do, let me know down in the comments below. And while you're down there, be sure to like, subscribe, hit the bell for notifications. If you'd like to further support the channel, you can hit that join button to become a member to get extra channel perks, or be sure to check out the merch store down below or the affiliate links in the pinned comment. Any of those really help me out, and I really do appreciate it. Either way, though, thank you so much for watching. My name's Stu, and I will see you guys next time.